These are the wide receivers that are going to break out in fantasy football this year, and you need to be drafting them. Kicking it off, I'm going with a guy who finished as a wide receiver 27 last year, kind of came out of nowhere, had a little bit of a mini breakout last year. It's Parker Washington. I think this is the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, a team that on the podcast, go check that out, we projected to win over 10 games. They won over 10 games last year, won their division. Finished the season on, I think, a 6 or 7 game win streak post week 10. This guy's a stud, and all Liam Cohen's done is talk him up all summer. He's comparing him to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's saying he's the first one in the building, last one out, hard-nosed kind of guy. And he profiles as a guy who's going to put up a lot of fantasy points. So in that winning streak post week 10, he became their primary slot guy. And this is after they traded for a guy in Jacoby Myers who probably profiles more as a slot than an outside guy. They went with Parker as the slot guy. He lined up in the slot 57.3% of the times, whereas BTJ and Jacoby were like sub 25% during that stretch. On the year, Parker had a 2.19 yards per route run. Jacoby was 1.52. BTJ was 1.45. He was clearly the best receiver on the team last year. And a stat that stands out to me, he had 95 targets last year. 33% of them came on third or fourth down. So that shows got to have it situations. Trevor Lawrence is looking to Parker Washington. And another just stat to throw out there that I thought was pretty interesting. I mentioned how he lined up primarily in the slot down the stretch of the year. He had a 13.7 ADOT during that stretch. So this wasn't your prototypical slot, dink and dunk, screen kind of thing. Liam Cohen wants his slot to run downfield routes, running digs over the middle of the field, posts and things of that nature. And then the guy's just a beast after the catch. I mean, Liam Cohen compared him to a running back. I think, honestly, Parker Washington might be the closest thing in the NFL to a prime Deebo Samuel that we have right now, where he's built like a running back. He returns punts too. Like, he's just electric after the catch. Yeah, so I think this is a guy who could see 115 plus targets, maybe even that 120 range. I think he is the clear wide receiver 1 in the offense. He should clear 1,000 yards, get a bunch of touchdowns. And then the last thing I'll say too is, like we said in the quarterbacks and the running backs, this is just players we think will be better than they were and break out. This isn't really factoring in ADP. He's the cheapest of the Jacksonville receivers right now. And Vegas disagrees with that. Vegas projects him to lead the team in yards. So there's a discrepancy there. I think that'll probably clean up come draft time. He should be the first Jacksonville receiver off the board. He should be the guy that you're targeting in your drafts.
That's one of those situations where I feel like a lot of people are so confused as to who exactly is going to be that wide receiver 1. But you saw down the stretch of the season that very quickly Parker Washington became that guy for them, especially with the struggles of Brian Thomas, and Jacoby Myers obviously was great for them and opened up a lot, especially for Parker Washington, who was able to move all over the formation at that point. So I'm in complete agreement. I think don't simplify it for yourself, because he was so great down the stretch of last year that it's like, I think they told you a lot just by showing you right there. So I agree. I think Parker Washington is that guy in Jacksonville. I can't lie.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say here too is we spoke about it in the running back and quarterback videos. A team tells you what they're going to do, right? We talked about, David Montgomery. The Texans went out and traded for him. The team also tells you what they're going to do when it translates to winning football games, right? When Parker Washington came onto the scene last year, the Jaguars didn't lose a game until they lost in the playoffs. So if the Jaguars want to win games, there's a blueprint, there's a recipe here of Parker Washington being the primary target in the offense to be able to get to where they want to go. So I think the stars align for a big year for Parker.
Yeah, I completely agree. You think he's a 1,000-yard receiver this year?
I do.
Okay.
I do. He was damn close last year, and he really didn't come onto the scene until second half of the year.
They were one of the most difficult teams for me to stat out, and I think I ended up having each of them lead the team in one specific category, and I'm pretty sure Parker led in yards. But yeah, all right. So DeVonta Smith is my first wide receiver that I believe is going to break out, and I know it's kind of a cop-out answer because we all know DeVonta Smith is a phenomenal wide receiver and a guy that has had wide receiver 1 talent for a very long time, but I can't necessarily say that Smitty has lived up to the lofty Heisman expectations that he had coming into the NFL. The guy was the first ever wide receiver to win a Heisman Award. I mean, the guy had the most ridiculous wide receiver season in college football, or one of them in history, comes into the league and was expected to be one of the best receivers in the entire NFL. He was very good his rookie season. He was great his second year, but that was the year that they decided to trade for A.J. Brown. And obviously, A.J., one of the 5 best wide receivers in his prime, overshadowed what Smitty could do at least a little bit. Now, going into this season, Smitty is Hurts' most known target, the guy that he's most familiar with and a guy that he has a rapport with already. And also, we all know Jalen Hurts loves to throw outside the numbers. And Smitty is a guy that could play downfield, could play in the slot. He's all over the place. So in games without A.J. Brown, over the last 2 years, he has averaged a 38% target share, 2.7 yards per route run, over 6 catches per game, and over 88 receiving yards per game. And then if I took it all the way back to 2022, this is without A.J. Brown. He has 2.6 yards per route run in games that A.J. doesn't play, and a .61 expected fantasy points per route run in the NFL. 8th in yards per route run and 4th in expected fantasy points per route run. So when A.J. Brown is not a factor, DeVonta Smith is the guy that we all expected him to be as a top 5 wide receiver. So yeah, obviously they went out and drafted Mekhi Lemon, but I don't think Mekhi Lemon is going to take away from DeVonta Smith. I think Smitty's target volume is going to be similar to that of A.J. Brown's, probably around 140 to 160 targets. And if that holds up, this guy's going to go for well over 1,300 yards this upcoming season and have a ridiculous breakout and career highs across the board. So I think DeVonta Smith is an easy breakout, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say here. When we, picked our guys over text last night, I told you, I didn't pick DeVonta Smith because I know that's one of your guys. I know you were going to go there. This is just probably the most obvious breakout in fantasy football this year. Forget about the numbers, just the opportunity that opens up for him without A.J. Brown there. It's just clear as day that this guy's going to have the best year of his career. Plus, you factor in all those numbers that you mentioned. The guy has been a stud. He's been a stud dating back to college, and, yeah, he's in for a huge season. I have a question for you, though, about DeVonta Smith because I don't really have much to add on there. I saw the Yahoo Fantasy guys do this little experiment, so I want to ask you, if you simulated the NFL season 10 times, how many of those 10 times do you think Mekhi Lemon outscores DeVonta Smith in fantasy football?
1. I'd say there's a 10%
Like, there's a possibility, but it's not going to
high.
happen.
Yeah, it's not high. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say that the way that it happens is obviously Smitty gets hurt. The other way that it happens is it's just Mekhi is just way better than we all expected him to be.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I really don't think there's a world because I think DeVonta Smith is a top 10 wide receiver this year. I really do. So I'm that high on him, and unless Mekhi Lemon steps in as a top 5 wide receiver, I just don't see a world where that happens. But
yeah, I'm with you. And stuff we talked about like during the draft process too, Mekhi Lemon doesn't prototypically fit into Jalen Hurts' game, whereas a guy like DeVonta Smith and his skill set really does. Obviously, there's going to be a shift in the Eagles' offense with Sean Mannion coming over, and they're going to try to attack the middle of the field more than they have in years past. But it's a big adjustment for Jalen Hurts to implement that into his game. So
it's also it's a new target too. Not only is it a new way of doing the offense, it's also a new target in Mekhi Lemon. Like Smitty, it's I'm familiar with that. I'm comfortable with that.
Right.
And that's where I like to go in the first place. So it's like it all kind of just lines up. Like the stars are aligning for DeVonta Smith to go absolutely insane this year. So
yeah, for sure. My next wide receiver breakout, I was in on him as a prospect. I was in on him as a rookie. I was out on him as a sophomore, but I'm back. And I couldn't find his jersey in the studio. I must have brought it home, and it's under my pillow, and I sleep with it every night or something like that.
So excited.
It's Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm back. I'm here. This is tough because it's been so underwhelming. This is a guy who went top 4 in his draft. He was the chosen one, a generational prospect. They're saying he's, Julio Jones level of prospect, and it just hasn't panned out that way. Last year, he had 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, only played in 12 games, and I think that's what gets lost in the shuffle here with Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Like, we look at him, honestly had a good rookie year. It was just disappointing given the standards that we set for him. Then his second year was just really disappointing when you look at the raw numbers. Kyler Murray was playing in the first, 4 or 5 games of the season, whatever it was for the Cardinals, and they just didn't have a good rapport, a good connection. Then Marv suffers a concussion in week 6, holds him out a couple weeks, and he's dealing with appendicitis for the rest of the year. It was just an injury-riddled year for Marvin Harrison Jr., and I expect with a full bill of health him to get back on track. In 3 full games he played with Jacoby as the starter, he out-targeted Michael Wilson in every single game, averaging 9.3 targets per game in that stretch. And then when they were both on the field, Marvin had a 25.7 target share and 0.21 targets per route run, whereas Michael Wilson had a 15.8 target share and a 0.13 targets per route run. When they were both on the field and fully healthy, Marvin Harrison Jr. was clearly the number 1 wide receiver target in this offense. Then another bonus stat here, because I know the pushback here is, well, you draft Marvin Harrison Jr., he's better than Michael Wilson. You're still getting the wide receiver 2 in this offense because of Trey McBride and how great he is. With Marv McBride and Jacoby Brissett on the field last year, Marv had a 25.2 target share, like I said, and 0.21 targets per route run. Trey McBride was only at a 29.9 target share and 0.25 targets per route run. So they were very close in terms of their targets. I expect McBride to lead the team in targets and yards and all that stuff. But also, you look at the season Trey McBride had last year, I don't think it's crazy to say that's an outlier. It's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal player. It's deadass one of the greatest tight end seasons we've ever seen in the sport.
Yep.
It's hard to replicate that, right? So I expect everything for Trey McBride to kind of come back down, and that opens up more opportunities for Marv. And then it's just the player he is, right? He's not Julio Jones. He's not Calvin Johnson. He's not this guy who's going to overwhelm you with his athleticism. What he is he's a savant. He's more like a DeVonta Adams. He's this big-body guy who runs routes and moves in a way that someone at his size should not be able to move in terms of his feet. And he's had the disservice of his first 2 years of only lining up as a true outside receiver. Michael Ford comes in. I expect him to get creative with this offense. I expect Wilson and Marv to kind of move all around the formation here. And then another saving grace here is the LaFleur point. You saw him in LA last year with Davante Adams. They got down into that red zone. They said, fuck running the ball. They said, let my guy go win. And again, I think Davante Adams, I know you comp him to Michael Thomas a lot. Like those type of guys, those jumbo route runners are the comp for Marvin Harrison Jr. When they get down into that red zone, they're going to say, Marv, go win.
Yes.
And that's something he's actually been great at. Like, you could point out all the negatives in Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game. When they've gotten down to the red zone, he's been able to win for the most part. Especially last year, too. Like, there were all those concentration drops as a rookie. And last year, too, I remember the Seattle game stands out a lot where first 20 minutes of that game, I think the guy had 4 drops.
It was really bad.
And then he took over the game.
Yes.
And then he took over the game, and he was routing guys up in the red zone. I think he ended up with 2 touchdowns in that game. So, like, this is a guy who he should be at, let's call it 8 targets per game on the year. I'd be shocked if he plays 17 and doesn't clear 1,000 yards, and he has 10 touchdown upside. So, I sat him out. I had him basically exactly there. I think I had him at 73 receptions, just clearing 1,000 yards. I think I had him at 1,009, and I had him at 10 touchdowns, which it's a breakout.
It's a huge breakout for sure.
Compared to where he's been, that's a breakout for him.
10 double-digit touchdowns. I like that. The only issue is, will the Cardinals' offense score enough for him to see 10 touchdowns? That's my only question. I'll also say this. I'll add another stat to your favor. While I was looking for stats for some of my guys, I found that over the last 2 years, which are the first 2 years of Marv's career, he was top 10 in win rate on the outside. So the guy gets open.
Right.
It's just they haven't exactly used him in ways that have been beneficial for him to get the ball in the offense. So I am with you. We're very high on Marv here. So,
I mean, he saw 116 targets as a rookie. There's no reason this shouldn't be a 125-plus target guy. And with that, like, you call like 65, 70 receptions, and through his career so far, he's averaged over 14 yards per reception in his career. So, like, do the math on that, he should clear 1,000 yards. Like, I'd be really shocked if he plays a full 17 and doesn't get 1,000.
I would be thoroughly shocked if he at least doesn't come close. I think one of the benchmarks will be eclipsed, if not both, with 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. One of those two is going to happen, in my personal opinion. But yeah, so I will move on to my second wide receiver breakout, and it's very surprising here. It's a guy that spent 4 years in an offense that everybody gets the ball. And now he gets to go to play with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Romeo Doubs just signed with the New England Patriots for 4 years, $68 million. And it's funny because I just went from one person who got away from A.J. Brown to another person who is now teammates with A.J. Brown. But there's a lot of buzz in the offseason that he's going to be the primary slot receiver for this offense. And you may be asking, why is that so important? Well, Diggs last year off a torn ACL and at nearly 32 years old, or partially at 32 years old, had 102 targets and 85 catches. 53% of his routes came from the slot. And Diggs didn't even play a majority of the snaps. He only played about 55 to 60% of passing snaps. So I'm not saying that Doubs isn't necessarily the talent of a Stephon Diggs. That's not what I'm getting at. But there is also some stats that do back up how good this guy is. Over the last 2 years, Doubs has the highest average separation score in the slot, but has only ran just 16% of his routes from the slot. So the guy could get open. We all know Doubs is a very good route runner, and if that creeps closer to about 50%, he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a big-time problem, and he will get the ball a lot. Also, I know I just brought up how DeVonta Smith got free of A.J. Brown. I do think in both ways, A.J. Brown will help a Romeo Doubs because he will take all of the coverage over the top. And that's going to leave Romeo Doubs to just get open underneath. One other impressive stat, this guy just seems to get open everywhere. Doubs is actually third in route win rate on the outside as well. So Romeo Doubs is one of the best in the entire league at separating. So yeah, as I said, Doubs could win all over the field. And yes, Jordan Love's a very good quarterback, but he's now taking an entire step up with quarterback play from an MVP in Drake May and an offense that was super efficient last year and only seems that it's going to get better. So I just expect Romeo Doubs to have a ridiculous season this year and a brand new role that's going to play to his strengths.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. I think a point that you left out there that's in his favor too is this should be a more pass-heavy offense than what he's played in Green Bay, right? Like, Green Bay was always trying to run the ball through Josh Jacobs to a lot of Packers fans' not enjoyment. Patriots and Drake May, I don't know the exact number, but they were near the top of the league in terms of pass attempts. So there should be opportunity for him. I'm with you 100%. I think A.J. Brown is going to roll coverage over and leave Romeo Doubs kind of on an island underneath to go out and win. And I think over his career so far, he's shown in those situations he can go out and win. I'm definitely curious to see, like, the alignment that they use. Like, I expect Doubs to be the primary slot receiver, but what does that look like? Do they try and move A.J. Brown inside at all? Like, is A.J. Brown only going to play outside? Because I think A.J. Brown's a guy who probably has lost a step in terms of his athleticism. So, like, do they want to try and manufacture touches for him on the inside? So it's definitely interesting to see, like, how this lines up. But, yeah, I mean, Romeo Doubs was awesome last year. A majority of the season last year, he was the Packers' go-to guy and was what got their offense going through the air once Suckercraft went down. So
had a ridiculous playoff game too.
Yeah, so I think he's in for a huge season. My final wide receiver breakout is a guy similar to Marv who got drafted very high, not as high as Marv, but it's just been a struggle bus for him throughout his NFL career so far. It's Quentin Johnston, another Charger. So I went with 2 Jaguars in terms of my running back and wide receiver, and I'm doubling up on Chargers here too. I think Quentin Johnston is an awesome player. That's the first thing. I think the hate on Quentin Johnston is overblown because of how bad he was as a rookie. I think he's been really awesome. He has 2 straight years of 700-plus yards and 8 touchdowns. He's one of the best deep threats, just straight vertical, straight line guys in the league with his size-speed combo. Then he gets paired up with big old Mike McDaniel, who's just, in my opinion, one of the best offensive minds in the sport. He's going to get his guys open in space, and that was kind of QJ's calling card coming out of the draft, right? It was his ability to take the ball on the fly and be able to make a play after the catch, kind of similar to a Parker Washington in that regard. And the last thing here is Quentin Johnston has been successful on out routes, dig routes, and post routes in terms of like over deep routes, right? Like the 9, the straight go route, which I said he's very good on, he's only had a 50% success rate on those last year. In terms of the volume that he's running these routes, the post, the out, and the dig, some of his lowest according to reception perception. You look at a guy like Jalen Waddle last year, who played in the Mike McDaniel offense, those 3 routes were his highest percentage of routes. So expect Mike McDaniel to get creative with Quentin Johnston. The same reason that everyone's all over Lad McConkey, right? Like, we left him off this video. That's another, honorable mention. I think we both like Lad the player and expect him to have a great year. The same reasons we're in on Lad McConkey is the reason you have to be in on a guy like Quentin Johnston. Because if you're not, then you're just contradicting yourself, honestly. We've seen Mike McDaniel be able to support 2 elite fantasy wide receivers before. Obviously, Jalen Waddle was in and out of the lineup, so that's why in terms of total points on a season, he kind of never really got there with Tyreek Hill. But on a points-per-game basis, both of them were great when they played together. The offense is going to be great. You have an improved offensive line with the guys getting healthy and the additions on the interior. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. They're going to score a ton of points. There's a ton of touchdown upside here. So similar to Marv, like, I think this is a guy who could push 1,010. I do. He's been at 8 the past 2 years. He's been at 730 the past 2 years in terms of his yards. Hasn't played a full season in each of the last 2 years. Like, you give him an extra 2-3 games, you give him improved targets in terms of the quality of them and where he's getting them, and I think this is a guy who could be great. And then, ADP wise, same as Parker. Like, the guy's a steal in terms of where he's going in drafts right now too. So,
and with him, it's like you've seen a very consistent trend every single year of Quentin Johnston's career. He has added an element to his game. He has gotten a little bit better. And I expect better play calling. The player will likely get better. It's a perfect storm for him to go out and have career highs.
Yeah, I think a lot of the struggles overall for the 2 Chargers receivers last year, Quentin and Ladd, a lot of it probably has to do with a guy like Keenan Allen being there last year, right? Like, Keenan wasn't great, but he's a guy who played with Justin Herbert for years before. Keenan was that third down, reliable, move the chains guy to where those valuable targets on third down, we're not going to QJ. We're not going to Ladd. He's gone. There's more opportunity there. This should be a very pass-heavy team, although they're going to get the run game going with Hampton.
Yep.
There's going to be a ton of opportunities for him. So
one of your breakout running backs, go check that video out.
Yeah, I think the thing is with Huge, he's been very inconsistent, right? Like, he'll have a game where he's going for, 6 for 100 and a touchdown, and then he'll have a game where he's 0-0-0.
Yep.
I think what Mike McDaniel brings is that consistency to him, where he profiles as a guy who's just going to have big boom weeks. It takes one play, and the guy has 60 yards and a touchdown on the board. So, like, those weeks are going to be there, but I think with Mike McDaniel, he's going to get more schemed, more elaborate touches that's going to help the overall consistency and help him be a great fantasy football pick. And
possibly bring out what you've mentioned on multiple occasions, his yak, an ability that hasn't really been tapped into too much on the underneath routes with Quentin Johnston. So, yeah, I'm in agreement. I think there's a big year on the horizon for anybody in a Chargers uniform, to be quite honest with you. But
right, that's the biggest thing here is same as the Jaguars. Like, I'm just in on the offense as a whole. Like honestly, I said he's an honorable mention. Like, draft both of them. Draft Ladd, draft Quentin Johnston, draft Justin Herbert, draft Omari and Hampton. Yeah. Like, get as much of this offense as you can. I think this is probably, like, hot take here, and this will be on the BallGame podcast at some point when we do the AFC West. Like, I think this is the best offense in the sport, not named the Rams.
Okay. All right. I was going to say. Los Angeles, man, high flying.
Yeah.
High flying.
No, I really do. I don't think they have a weakness in their offense. They're going to score a ton of points. The only issue with the Chargers is potential injury because they're a cursed franchise, but it's hard to predict that. Like, on the surface level, this is an elite offense. Top 5 at their worst, I think.
No, I completely agree. Moving from one AFC West member to another, the Kansas City Chiefs had a little bit of a fall off. I actually didn't even tell you that I was going to have this guy. I pivoted last minute, and I decided to go with another first-round pick that has had a disappointing start to his career. I went with Xavier Worthy. I think where Xavier Worthy is being drafted, I think he's going to break out in general, but I think he's essentially a nothing burger in terms of what he costs you. Xavier Worthy is another guy that I love to look at as a post-hype sleeper. Like that's a big thing in fantasy. If a guy is being hyped up so much going into his second year and then just absolutely falls flat on his face, people forget about them so quickly, and then they tumble down draft boards, and their cost is next to nothing. And Xavier Worthy is one of those guys. I hate believing early camp buzz, but all the reports about Xavier Worthy is he's completely refined himself as a route runner, and he's just this brand new player. And people need to remember that last year in week 1, the guy had a freak injury where he got absolutely demolished by his own teammate and played with a torn labrum for the entirety of the season, basically, from the start of the year. So the last healthy version of Xavier Worthy that we saw went for 85 and a touchdown in the AFC Championship, and then 157 and 2 touchdowns. Granted, it was a blowout, but that was in the Super Bowl. So the best version of Xavier Worthy that we saw was in the playoffs at the end of his rookie season. So that is what we always expected. That's the guy that they drafted and they thought they were getting. So obviously, the Rashee Rice question will always stand there in both good and bad ways. When he's on the field, he definitely limits Xavier Worthy in terms of what type of production he could have. But when he's off of it, the opportunity is absolutely going to be there for Xavier Worthy. And just in case you didn't know, Rashee Rice misses more than half of his games in his career for one reason or another. So the opportunity is going to be there for Xavier Worthy. The draft cost was there for the Chiefs. They have every reason to give him the football. He's healthy. He's back. And by way of his own health and Patrick Mahomes' health, I'm expecting him to have a big-time season. I do think he gets close to 1,000 yards, and that will, in and of itself, be worth the draft cost. He can win down the field. He can win underneath. He's actually very good with the ball in his hands, too. As his rookie year, he averaged near 7 yards after the catch and had 9 total touchdowns. So he was a first-round pick for a reason. The talent was obviously there, and he showed the flashes his rookie year. It's just he had to deal with an injury the entirety of his second year that kind of took Xavier Worthy out a little bit. So,
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with Xavier Worthy is the Chiefs kind of went away, and he dealt with a major injury. So, like, that's probably a big part of this. The Chiefs went away from letting him be a playmaker,
yes,
from letting him go and make plays. And they used him a lot down the stretch of last year just as a field stretcher to open things up underneath for the Travis Kelce's of the world. I think this is a guy who you have to manufacture touches for him. Like, there's going to be plays where he's going to have a chance to beat you over the top, but also Tyreek Hill ruined that for any Chiefs receiver in the near future, right? Yep. Like, the Chiefs are going to see the most 2 high shells of any team in the NFL. They're, no one wants to get beat over the top by Patrick Mahomes. That's why all his, deep accuracy and deep numbers have been on the decline the past couple years. Yep. Obviously, he hasn't had the receiver help of a Tyreek Hill, but I think a big part of that is the way defenses have adjusted to him. So that's not going to be there all the time for Xavier Worthy. So you have to – and they did a lot of it in his rookie year too, like getting him on the end arounds, getting screens for him. So I expect that to be a focal point of their offense this year, especially if a guy like Rashee Rice is set to miss time. They're going to have to move the ball somehow. And this is a guy who, if and when Rashee misses time, he should be the wide receiver 1 and the number 1 target in the offense. So, yeah, I think he's in for a big year. The offense overall also should be better, too, with the addition of a Ken Walker, right? Like, they should be able to run the ball the best they have in the Mahomes era since that first year with Kareem Hunt, which is just going to open the game for everyone else and, bring the safeties down and bring the opportunity for a Xavier Worthy and his 4.21 speed to burn you over the top. So
100%.
Yeah, I think he's in for a bounce back here for sure. I don't know what a
lot was going against him.
Yeah. I don't know what the numbers are. Like, I haven't statted him out or anything like that, or honestly really thought too much into Xavier Worthy. It should be better than it was last year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have him at around 900 yards and 6 touchdowns, which I'm not saying that's a ridiculous year, but I am saying for what was expected of him and now where all of our expectations are at, where it's basically the ground floor, if the guy goes for near 1,000 and 6 touchdowns, it's like, okay, we're back.
Great. He's a good flex.
Exactly.
Like, that's a guy who you want in your lineup because if he's at 900 yards and 6 touchdowns, there's games in there where he has over 100 yards.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe a game where he has 2 touchdowns. Yep. Like, he's a guy like that is always going to profile as a boomer bust guy, which is fine, right? Like, obviously, in fantasy, you want guys who are consistent and going to be consistently great, but a lot of times it's starting the boomer bust guys in the right weeks that's going to win you your league, win you your playoff matchup, win you your fantasy championship. And he's a guy who's more than capable of that.
And the thing is, he's so capable of winning all over the field, though. That's what people don't realize. Like, his rookie year, his ADOT was sub 10. And then his second year, it was near 13, which, like, plays to what you were just saying. The usage of him was just completely different. And I think a lot of it was just simply because the guy was hurt.
Right.
And it was like, we can't give the guy the ball 6-7 times a game because he's injured and he's just going to get even more banged up. So it's like things had to change, and I think he's back to where he was supposed to be.
It was also like he was hurt, and it was a dumpster fire of a year for him. It was also a dumpster fire of a year for the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole, right?
For part of it,
right? Like it was just a rough year for the Chiefs as a whole.
Yes.
And again, I'm gonna keep hammering this down. Like I think the addition of Ken Walker makes the Chiefs' entire offense much more stable and be better for the year of 2026.
For sure. Completely agree.
Those are our breakout wide receivers for fantasy football. Comment down below any breakout wide receivers that we missed or the ones that you agree or disagree with. Next week, we're going to have – nope, not next week. This week.
Yep.
This week, we're going to have breakout tight ends coming out. And then the following week, you guys are getting 5 videos a week, Monday through Friday. You're going to get how to draft from every position in the draft 1 through 12. Then you're going to get sleepers and players to avoid at every position leading up to fantasy football season. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And with that,
ball game.